Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going? My name is Sheldon Howe, owner of the Wichita Parisi Speed School. Hey, first and foremost, thanks for hopping on this. This is actually our first ever virtual orientation. I've never done one of these before, so just kind of bear with me if there's any hiccups as we kind of go along and show you guys the presentation. But, what is the orientation? Really, the orientation is just a presentation of the information of what exactly the school is. Really, the purpose behind it is so that you guys get a good idea of who we are, where we come from, what our company history is, kind of our methodology, how we do things here, and so on and so forth. So if you're on this page, there's obviously going to be some different offerings on here, and I'll also leave some contact information so that if you do have additional questions at the end of this, you can make sure that you can reach out and be able to get those questions answered. I know it's crazy times right now with a lot of different things going on, so this is our best way of communicating with everyone. So again, if you got questions, definitely do not hesitate to reach out. So give me one sec here. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen over so that we can get started. Shouldn't take too long here. Perfect. Okay, so to start, we are actually founded by a man named Bill Parisi. That's a picture of him right there. Bill started out playing football in high school. He was an undersized football player, but he knew he wanted to go to college, knew he had college dreams. He just didn't know exactly how he was going to make that a reality. And I think that that resonates with a lot of young athletes that we have in today's age. We have more kids playing sports than ever before, but they just don't really understand what it takes to be able to make the jump, from a youth level into the high school level, high school into college level, and then college into professional sports. That's a daunting thing, and it's kind of scary if you don't have a game plan, right? And Bill kind of fell into that same thing. He just didn't know exactly how to get that done. So what he ended up doing is he actually changed sports altogether. Bill actually ended up going to college for track. He was a javelin thrower. He was a pretty good javelin thrower as well, too. He was a two-time All-American, so he's pretty solid. He went to Iona University, which is a Division I school here in America. And after going to college and having a pretty good career there, what he decided is that he wanted to break a world record and compete in the Olympics. So Bill, having the Americanized mindset, what he wanted to do is he wanted to find some of the best javelin throwers in the world, and he just wanted to work with them and take all their tips and secrets and anything that they were able to offer him, right? So what he actually did is he actually found a coach that was named Tapios Kuros, and most people have no idea who that was. I didn't know who that was either when I first heard Bill's story. But what Bill did is he actually moved over to Finland for an entire year. So he went all in on this dream of making it to the Olympics, trained under Tapios. And like I said, when he got there, his mindset was, hey, give me all your tips and secrets. And, what he found is that they didn't really do anything that was, javelin specific, that was different than what he was training in America. But the way that they were training him as an athlete was completely different, right? They were working on a lot of different foundational principles and working on more of like functional movement and things like that. So they were training him to become a better athlete first and then worrying about the sport second, which is something that we don't really do here in America, which we'll kind of get to a little bit later. But so what happened with Bill is he actually came back over to the United States. He went to his Olympic trials. At his Olympic trials, he missed making the Olympic team by 2 inches on his throw. Okay, so as you guys can imagine, Bill was devastated. He had no idea what he wanted to do with his life. He was kind of down in the dumps. He actually ended up moving back into his mom's garage, and he lived in his mom's garage for a little while and, just trying to get his courage back up and figuring out what he wanted to do with his life. And this is when he kind of had like his aha moment, right? His light bulb moment. And, what he found he learned a ton of information while he was over there in Europe. And he said, I'm going to bring that information back over here to America, right? I'm going to do something with that. Thus, that is when the Parisi Speed School was actually founded and formed. In the top left corner of this sheet here, you'll see in spring of 1992, you see a picture of that white van. Okay, so Bill's business model literally was he had about $500 to his name, so he bought that white van, and then all he did is threw all of his training equipment in that white van, started driving around to little kids' practices and different schools and so on and so forth, and he would hop out of his white creeper van and be like, hey, let me train your kids. Right? And we always joke about that a little bit because if my staff and myself were out doing that, in this day and age, somebody's going to call the cops on us, right? Hey, there's some coaches in the creeper van driving around. But, it worked, right? It worked for him. He was ignorance on fire. He just knew that he had something that he had to share, and he was going to go about it any sort of way that he could, right? So fast forward a little bit, fall of 1993, he opens up his first facility. In spring of 1998, he opened up his second. 2001, he opened up his third. And then in 2005, 2004, he opened up his fourth. 2005, we began to franchise. Okay. So why do we talk about the business success? Well, mainly just so you guys understand that this thing works. We've standed the test of time, right? It's been around since 1992. Most people in our area have never even heard of it before. But it's been around for quite a while. And why is that? Is because, well, what we do, honestly, it works, right? We get results. I've been doing this for almost 6 years now. I have a 100% success rate out of my facility. Last year, we actually won an award for the most improved facility in the entire network, which there's over 100 different facilities that are out there. So, what we're doing on a local level is working really, really well as well. So fast forward a little bit more. In 2006, he started consulting, ESPN, the NFL network. You can actually look up on ESPN some videos there of Bill Parisi working with some athletes for combine stuff, inside of the NFL and things like that. In 2007, he started developing specialized programs for the New York Jets and the Cincinnati Bengals. Both of those teams obviously are in the NFL, so pretty high up as far as stature goes. And then in 2008, he was actually named the continuing education director for the NFL Combine, and he still holds that seat today. So continued education, so Bill is one of the presenters that actually presents to all the strength and conditioning coaches inside of the NFL every single year. He visits and goes to the Combine every year. So he's bumping elbows with some of the best, trainers that we have in the world. And these guys are, seeking out Bill Parisi for information and knowledge, in what we do as far as performance training. So, in my eyes, obviously I may be a little biased, but for me, you don't really get too much higher than Bill. To be honest, in his experience, it's amazing. And the teams that, he's involved with and the different people and so on and so forth, I'm honored to say that he coaches and trains me and I get to work with him. He knows me by name. I get to hang out, that side of stuff it's really remarkable with what we do here in Parisi. So fast forward a little bit more, growing national brand. Had over 190 NFL draft picks since 2001. That number has grown as well. We train first-round draft picks in every major sport. Here locally at Wichita Parisi, I've worked with 10 professional athletes. I've worked with 2 Olympic athletes out of this facility here. So we've actually kind of made our footprint as far as working with some, of the higher-end athletes. But that's not all that we do, right? We have athletes programs that go all the way down to young as 5 years old, right? So we have a program for everyone. Like what I tell people is, wherever you're at in your journey, we have something for you. We just want to make sure that we have a good game plan so that we can go out and achieve whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, right? But we've consulted for Nike, Reebok, Giants, Jets, Bengals, Patriots, a long list of universities there. The point that I always talk about, because I just think it's a really cool point, is the U.S. Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, and Marine Force Recon. And the reason I always talk about it is because when you read those, like, sports don't just pop in my head. Like, that's not what comes out, right? You say Navy SEALs, I don't think of throwing a football or, shooting baskets, right? I think of those women and men, like some of the baddest athletes in the world. Like, those guys are literally amazing, right? So I talked with Bill a little bit about this at one point in time and, just asked some questions on that and just kind of learned a little bit how we consulted for them. But the point is that, we probably have, 99, 95% of the kids that come through our door, we get it. They're coming here because they're here for sports. They want to get better at their sport. That's the most common thing that we see. But the reality is the things that we work on inside of here, honestly, will go with you no matter what platform that you decide to go with, right? You may decide in a couple of years that sports aren't for you and maybe you want to get into the military. Well, that's great. I promise you that you have to be a good athlete, right? And maybe sports don't end up being for you at all. Well, I promise you, if you know how to take care of your body, stay in good shape, understand movement mechanics and things like that, you're going to be better off and you're going to be a healthier athlete for that as well too. So it goes across all platforms. Our big thing here is education. We want to make sure that we're teaching you no matter what you decide to do, so that way you can take this information and keep it with you for the rest of your life. Okay. So some of the challenges facing the youth athletes today. Okay, we got more kids playing organized sports than ever before, like I was saying, but 30% of kids are overweight, 17 are obese, and today's kids are the least fit in our country's history. And actually, those numbers are just a hair outdated. It's actually 33% of kids are overweight and 21% are obese now here in America. So, the numbers aren't getting better here in America and on a grand scale. We're not becoming more active, right? And if you had to debate this or kind of talk about this and pick one thing or one reasoning why this is happening. I don't know that you necessarily could, but I always chalk it up to one thing: is we just aren't as active as we used to be, right? And this example kind of dates me a little bit, but it's the truth. Back when I was, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, we didn't have the internet at home, right? I didn't have gaming systems. I couldn't get on a computer. Like I wasn't able to do those things, right? So what did I do when I got home? I was outside. I was running around. I was shooting baskets. I was climbing trees. I was beating up my little brother, right? I was building an athletic foundation essentially for 3-4 hours every single day, to where, what are our kids doing in this day and age? A bunch of this, a bunch of this, a bunch of this, right? We're just not moving around like we used to, and that's causing a massive problem as far as what we have for our athletes and their health, right? So what are some of the results of that? Well, some of the results are, injury rates are at an all-time high. We got 3 million sports-related injuries each year, and then 75% of kids drop out of organized sports by high school, right? So, and that's a major problem, because if they're dropping out of sports by high school, why do you think that is? Well, the number one reason that I can come up with is that their athletic foundation is just not there, right? If your athletic foundation isn't there, then it's really hard for you to be able to make a team. And if you're just not a good athlete, it's really hard for a coach to be able to take on that project when they know they have a very small time frame to be able to work with you, right? So your athletic foundation is very, very important, but here in America, it gets kind of skipped over, which we'll talk about. But so why this slide? Well, the main reason is that we want to be a difference maker inside of this, right? We want to be able to help all of these numbers. We want to be able to teach you guys everything to be able to beat these numbers, be able to make your teams and continue to play as long as humanly possible. Because the goal is that if you want to play, in college and beyond, we want to be a part of that process, right? So moves us into the next slide, okay? And this is really just so that we're honest and open with you guys. What are the odds, right? What are the odds that you're going to be able to actually make it to college and be able to play in college, right? Most of the kids that come through our door, they want to play, right? They want to continue to play. And, we want to be honest, and just so you guys understand what you're getting yourself into, okay? Because we're very data-driven inside of here. We don't mess around with anything. I mean, we have hard statistical data that we follow, and all these metrics that we follow to show you what your performance is, how it's working, how it isn't working, so on and so forth. But so these are the odds of you actually making it into college and being able to play in college, right? So I was a baseball guy, so I'm just going to use the baseball example, but you can find your sport on here, and these are the most popular sports. There's obviously other ones, but just for the purpose of the slide. And I'm a boy, so I'll start with the top one there. But let's say that you make your high school team, which is hard enough as it is. Let's say you play varsity on your high school team, which is hard to do now because there's so many kids playing. But then let's say you excelled enough at your high school sport to where you have some college offers, right? So the odds of you playing in college, in any division in college for baseball, is 9-1. Okay, so and like most youth teams, you have roughly about 12 to 13 kids, I guess I would say, on most youth teams, except for youth football. Youth football, obviously, you're going to have about 24, 25, 26, somewhere in there, right? So, and you can look across these examples, okay? Baseball is 1-9, football is 1-12, soccer 1-13, right? So basically what it's telling you is about one kid off of every youth team actually ends up playing a college sport. Okay, now let that sink in just for a quick second. One kid off of each youth team ends up playing in college, right? Think of the last tournament that you went to where there was 20, 30, 40, 50 different teams in that tournament, and there's one kid off of each team, right? It's kind of crazy, right? Think about playing Division I, right? You want to go to KU, K-State, right? Some of the bigger schools, baseball 47-1, okay? Football 39-1, soccer 87-1. Right? So playing at that Division I level, okay, obviously exponentially just got harder, okay? 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, right? 10 times as hard to be able to make it to that, right? It gets a lot harder, right? Now, let's say you guys want to go pro, right? That's awesome, okay? Dude, baseball 764-1, football 603-1, soccer 835-1. Right? So the odds even tougher to be able to do that. This is, if you guys were in here, right? This is where all the parents are always shaking their head going, oh, that's why we say stay in school, right? That's why we say get an education, right? Because the reality is these odds are stacked against you, and you have to be honest with yourself about that, right? Now, this is where I kind of harp on my staff a little bit and kind of share this information too. Every single person on my staff has beat some of these odds, right? Every single person on my staff was either a college athlete or competed at a national level in their sport, and were able to beat these odds and be able to continue to play. right? So if you're looking for a place that actually is going to be able to surround yourself with different coaches that had different experiences inside of sports, but all were able to get through that and make it, then you found the right spot, because that's what we have here. Okay. Fast forward a little more. Okay. So who's the gatekeeper? Okay, at the end of the day, like we were talking about, right? Our kids are more connected than ever before. They're less active, but they're more on technology, right? Looking and seeing what is out there, and it influences them. But at the end of the day, who they look up to the most? It's you guys. It's their parents. Okay, and we throw this slide in here for two main reasons. Okay, number one, we are a school for a reason. You can see it right there on my shirt. Okay, we are an education thing. Okay, what we do inside of here is to educate. Okay, and I think that there's a major disconnect in youth sports when it comes to why teams do what they do, why teams practice the way that they do, why they condition the way that they do. And really, honestly, I think that as coaches, it's a lack of communication with our parents, because parents are kind of afraid to ask the right questions, or they may not even know the right questions to ask, right? Which leads to kids getting hurt, kids not knowing what's going on, so on and so forth. So I want you guys to understand, in this program, we are very open with our parents, okay? And we're obviously very open with our kids as well, too. So when I started doing this, it became a mission of mine to not only educate my kids, but to also educate my parents, right? Because I want you guys to be informed enough to be able to ask the right questions. Because if you go to a practice, especially after watching some of our classes that we have here, and you see them doing things incorrectly or not the right way, there's proper ways to ask, like, hey, why are we doing what we're doing? Because I promise you, if there is no intent behind why you are doing it, then you shouldn't be doing it, okay? You only have a finite amount of time in your athletic journey. You can't just be guessing, okay? You have to understand why you do what you do. And if you don't, then they're just guessing. They don't have a plan. They're just kind of rolling through, or they're teaching because that's how they were taught back in the day, whenever that was, right? We want to have a plan. We want to understand why we're doing what we're doing, okay? So not only do we want to educate our athletes, but I want to educate our parents as well, too. And I joke about this, but I'm also dead serious, right? If you were ever to come up to me or any of my staff and ask us, why are you guys doing what you're doing? And somebody on my staff doesn't have a direct answer for you, I promise you they're going to be in more trouble with me than they would be with you. Okay, because we do not guess inside of here. I have a 100% success rate for a reason, because we follow a methodology. We follow a system. We do not reinvent the wheel inside of here. We just follow literally the best in the business, and then we follow in those footsteps to make sure that we're getting our athletes those same results. Okay, so that's the first reason why we throw this slide in here. The second reason why we throw it in here, and we don't shy from this whatsoever, what we do is going to be hard work. Right? And that's just something that you have to understand. If you want to be an athlete, you're going to have to work hard. Okay. You're going to have to push yourself past your normal limits. Okay. And be able to elevate your game and turn you into something that you don't even know what that is yet. Right. And that's our job as coaches, is to be able to make you, comfortable with being uncomfortable, being able to push yourself in certain areas and go out and get the goals that you want. Right. Because if you had them already, then you wouldn't be seeking for help. Right. You wouldn't be trying to work towards them, because you would already have them, right? So that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to help you to attain those things. So at points in times, right, you're going to leave here and be like, man, mom, dad, like my legs, whew, I'm shot today. And we have to know as parents that we're building them back up to get them back in here so that we can stay on the game plan, right? We can work towards that goal. Okay, so that's very important inside of here to understand. So make sure you guys ask questions. Make sure if you need any information, do not hesitate to ask, right? That's why we are here for, and we want to help you guys out. Okay. Next is a training paradigm. So when Bill came back over to America and had his aha moment, this is what I attest this slide to, okay? Over here in America, we train on what's called the sports skill paradigm, okay? What that means is every sports season that comes around here, that's what we work on, right? Football season, we go to football practice. Basketball season, we go to basketball practice. Baseball season, we go to baseball practice, right? When we show up to that practice, we're going to spend about 70% of the time working on a sports-specific skill, right? I was a baseball guy, right? I show up to baseball practice. I pick up a baseball, I'm playing catch with a baseball, fielding a baseball, hitting a baseball, right? You're not getting the glove, ball, or bat out of my hands about 70% of the time, right? I'm doing something with that at all times. Next, is sports knowledge, right? So this is where the coach pauses practice and goes, hey guys, we're going to work on bunt plays, pickup plays, cutup plays. What do you do in this situation? What do you do when you have the ball, you don't have the ball? Where should you be? So on and so forth. And then about 10% of practice is spent on strength, speed, endurance, flexibility, coordination, and self-confidence. What's that mean? That means that, all right, guys, practice is over. Let's go hop down the line. We're going to run some sprints till someone, cries, pukes, calls mom, whatever. And then we're going to get out of here in 15 minutes. right? And if you're thinking about your youth practice right now, I promise you it's pretty close to that, right? And that really doesn't change too much, right? As you get into high school, they get a little bit more time. College, they get a little bit more time. And then obviously professional sports. But, you know, as you get more time, you can do more things. But from a youth level, that's pretty much the blanket practice that you can put on just about every sport, right? So inside of here, we do things a little bit differently, okay? So it's a little bit of a paradigm shift. Okay, we're going to spend about 60% of the time working on strength, speed, endurance, flexibility, coordination, and self-confidence. Why? Because that's what gives your athlete a strong base. Okay, if you have a strong base, there is always a spot on a team for you, right? And just think about this for a second. If you're really strong and you're really fast, okay, every coach out there wants you, right? And I always ask this when we're doing these in office, right? I always ask, you know, have you guys ever had a coach come up to you and say, hey, man, hey, lady, you know, you're just way too fast. Would you mind slowing down for the team? That's really what the team needs today. No, right? Have you guys ever had a coach come up to you and go, oh my goodness, man, like you are so strong. I need you to weaken up because if you weaken up, that's going to make our team better. No, like those things are never, ever, ever, ever said. And if they are said by your coach, get off of that team immediately because they have no idea what they're talking about, right? Speed and strength are the number one and number two things, number one, co-number one things that are the most important things inside of sports, right? Think about the last game that you went to. What athlete stands out? The fastest athlete, the strongest athlete, right? So if you have those things, you can build that foundation into an incredible athlete. But if you don't have those things, that's where it becomes very difficult and very hard. Right now, that doesn't mean that we neglect sports specific things inside of here. Okay, so we're going to spend about 30% of our time working on sports specific skills and then 10% of our time working on sports knowledge. Like I said, with my staff, you know, we have a lot of experience inside of sports. We played sports our entire lives at very high levels, right? So we bring an edge to that as well, too, from the mental side of the game because we've all gone through a lot when it comes to our sports and we were able to play, you know, really as long as we wanted to. So kind of a cool point there. So now, this is our performance system. So if you guys decide to do this program, this is going to be what it is that you're going to be subject to, right? These are the things that we do in every single one of our classes, okay? So the first thing is our active dynamic warm-up, okay? Our warm-up, we do about 40 to 45 exercises in 15 minutes, okay? So think about that for a second, right? You can do some simple math there, okay? That's a lot of moving around in a very short amount of time, okay? So there's a purpose behind our warm-up. There's a lot of purposes, but the main ones are that we want to fire up the central nervous system, we want to raise core body temperature, and we actually want to wake up the body, right? We want to break a sweat, we want to be moving around, okay? You want to know why? Number one reason why I think we have so many injuries inside of sports? Because kids don't know how to warm up the right way. I cannot count how many games, tournaments, things that I have been to where I watch kid get out of the car, the van, whatever, walk to the field, high five a couple teammates, send off his last couple of texts, and then next thing you know, he's running onto the field to play the game, right? Whatever game that is. I've seen it every time that I go out there, and it blows my mind that we don't have coaches that are educating people how to warm up the right way. Because I promise you, as you're young, okay, you can get away with a lot of things, but as you get older, if you don't warm up the right way, your body is going to go backwards on you. It's going to, you know, end up in an injury, or you're just going to have some ailments and things like that. But next is strength training. Okay, so every single day inside of here, you're going to do some form of strength training. Now, and this time, you know, more than ever before, right, there's many, many different types of strength training, right? You could honestly debate 12, probably 13 different categories of strength training in this day and age. Okay, what we do is we narrow that down into three simple categories. Okay, number one is body weight training. Okay, so simply just you and your body weight and being able to move. Okay, number two is resistance training, okay, where we add a band of some sort inside of there and do some different types of resistance training. Okay, and then three is actually weightlifting, right? So actually using weights and added weight into whatever movement it is that you're doing. Now, we live by a principle inside of here, okay, knock on wood, okay, I've been doing this, like I said, for almost 6 years now, okay, and I have never once had an injury inside of my facility, and I hope and plan to never have one, right? And why is that? Is because we do not allow athletes to progress until they can perfect a movement, right? From the very beginning, we get you guys to understand that it's not about how much weight you can do, it's about how much you can do correctly, right? Because just doing a bunch of weight but then doing it wrong, that's like a double negative. It doesn't serve a purpose, okay? You have to be able to do the things correctly. If you can do them right and then you move up, well, then now we're on the right track, okay? And then last thing is movement skill training. Okay, so, and this is always where I always ask another question in office where I'm always like, hey, you know, by a show of hands, you know, raise your hand if you've been taught how to run. Okay, and this is where everyone kind of looks at each other and goes, huh, you know, really, I don't know that I ever have been taught how to run. Okay, and then I always ask the second question, what sport do you guys play? Do you run a lot in that sport? Everyone's like, well, yeah, I run pretty much all the time. Like I'm running in some form of fashion. Okay. So it always blows my mind to think about our sports and how we miss over this, right? Most kids have never been taught how to run. Honestly, most adults that I know have never been taught how to run, but yet that's what we do, 89 to 93% in sports. Like we are literally running quite a bit, right? Our sports specific movements are honestly on the low end, but that's what we always work on in practice, right? So when you start looking at it by the numbers, it starts to kind of make you scratch your head a little bit. You're like, like I don't really know why we don't work on that more, right? So that's what we're going to do inside of here is we're going to teach you how to move the right way, right? No matter what sports you play, okay? It does not matter what it is. There is proper technique to be done inside of that sport, okay? And that's what we are going to teach you so that way it actually, provides for your sport, right? So next one is our programs. Now, if you're watching this, obviously there's going to be some different program options that are going to be on our online portion. But our main two categories that we have inside of here is our Jumpstart program and our Total Performance program, okay? Now, looking at those programs, the main thing that you see right there are going to be the age differences. Now, and this is a little disclaimer, we do not care what age you are, okay? I do not care if you're 15 years old. I don't care if you're 50 years old. I don't care if you're 5. It does not matter what age you are to me. What we care about is your ability, right? What is your actual athletic ability? Because that is what's going to place you into our programming here at the school. Those age ranges are just a rough age, just so you guys kind of get, an understanding of that. Now, what do we work on inside of these programs, okay? So the 5 major things that we work on inside of here, okay, I kind of call these like our pillars, okay? The 5 major things are acceleration, okay, deceleration, top speed mechanics, we have multi-directional speed or change of direction, and then strength. Okay, those 5 things are predominant every single time that you're inside one of our classes. Okay, so and a lot of times those will be blended classes as well too. We'll add some strength into just about every class because you have to get stronger to be able to get faster. So you're going to see all of those things inside of there. But each time that you're coming, we're going to know what we're working on, and we have a game plan based around who's actually going to be in that class, and then that's how we program everything out accordingly. So. Next is team training. I won't dive into this too much. We do team training as well too. We do discounted rates for team training as well. So if you guys are coaches or have questions about team rates and things like that, feel free. Make sure that you shoot me an email, a text message, whatever, and I'll get back with you and we can set a meeting to kind of talk about all of the different team options too. But as the last thing is our mission. As the industry leader in performance enhancement, we will continue to deliver a positive training experience that improves speed of movement, strength, character, regardless of ability or economic status. Ultimately, guys, at the end of the day, that is why we do what we do, right? That is why, Parisi has become such a staple point in our life and why we are so passionate about what we do. I always joke around about this, but it is, it's kind of funny. I've yet to meet many coaches, that get into coaching because of the money, right? That's not why we coach, right? And that would be a terrible profession choice if that's what you were doing it for, because there's not a ton of money in it. Now, we run a business. We got to keep the lights on. I got to keep, my employees and things like that. But, at the end of the day, we do it for the kids because we love the kids, right? I always tell people, we have a very big family atmosphere inside of here. Like it's remarkable how engaged we get with our athletes. We try to go out to their practices, go out to their games, go out to their tournaments, like try to show them that we truly care about them because we do. Like we really, truly, honestly do. Like I always, they're like our little brothers and sisters inside of here. And we just take care of them and we want to be with them through their athletic journey, because we know what it's like to not have coaches like that, right? If there's one thing that I think is very synonymous between all of our coaches that we have here on staff is the fact that, we just know that we didn't have this when we were growing up, and we all ended up having pretty good careers, in my opinion, really great careers, honestly. We beat most of the odds that most people aren't able to beat. And, if we would have had something like this, we just know that it would have changed our careers even more, that we would have been able to play longer and longer and longer. So, there's a deep-rooted passion inside of that for what we do here at the school. So we're excited about sharing that information with you guys. But the last thing that I always talk about, because it is truly the most important thing, is our life skills. Honesty, work ethic, self-discipline, confidence, responsibility, healthy food choices, leadership, and teamwork. Honestly, guys, that's the big picture, right? That is the big picture goal with what we do as coaches. We can teach people to be great athletes and we can help them perform and all of those things. Honestly, that's all science. It's not really, hard to be be able to do, honestly. But if they leave here, and they're not a good person, then we're not doing our jobs as coaches, right? It's much more than just sports in here, right? Winning and losing is awesome. I love to win. I hate to lose. But there's lessons to be learned inside of both of those things, and understanding how that pertains to life, and putting better people out there, as I say. So yeah, so that is pretty much it. So thank you guys for looking at that. Let me just get this off of here real fast, back to me. So yeah, so that is pretty much, the orientation there. Again, on this page, there's going to be some different options about some different things, and there'll be details and all of that inside of those. But if you have questions, if you want to ask some questions, make sure you set up a time with me. We can either hop back on one of these. I can shoot you a phone call, FaceTime, text message, whatever works best for you. And we'll definitely, get in contact with you and make sure that we're on the same page about everything before you get started, right? But at the end of the day, I appreciate you guys getting on here. I appreciate you guys, tuning into this and checking it out. And hopefully we talk to you guys soon. So thank you, and I will see you guys later. You guys have a good one. Thanks.